Hey everyone, this is Mr. Everything, and I wanted to do a video talking about installing a catch can. For me, it's going to be the Chevy Impala, but it would apply to 3.6 liter GM engines. But really, this application is more so for the Impala because of the way you have to route it, since it's a transverse mounted engine. But I decided when I bought the car, it actually has low mileage, but that seemed to be like the main thing when you watch the YouTube videos that try and scare you and how bad the car is. But they all say about that PCV, like orifice more than a valve, to do the mod on it. So that's the first thing that I drilled these out to. I think it's like 5/64ths and 7/64ths for 30 seconds. I'm not exactly sure, but I did it to the right specification. And it's pretty much as simple as that. You can get this for like $10. Now you could take the old one out and clean it, and that'll help with that issue. But I decided I'll keep the old one for stock and then have this new modded one to put on. And I also decided to buy a new breather tube in case the old one breaks when I'm taking it off. And depending on what type of fittings come with this catch can, I might need to use that old one anyway. They changed the part number, so it's now this part number, and it's way more money. It's like $50. So that's unfortunate, but I would recommend having an extra one of these too. And as far as catch cans go, I'm not gonna do the valve cover gasket change because first I looked on YouTube. I don't see anyone showing it, and then just a quick search, I didn't see like anyone selling the one that specifically said it was like modded for that PCV. So I figure I don't even want to mess with that. So I figure the best thing to do is do the modded orifice to allow more flow, so there's not as much of a chance of any pressure buildup. But then, even though more can flow through it, then I'll get a catch can. And after looking around, I could have went cheap and got like a $20 one, but then it really came down to this hose, because as far as I can tell on the Impala, there's really no good spot to mount this anywhere near that rear valve cover where the PCV's at. So I think you're gonna have to put it up front by the radiator, and it's gonna take a lot of hose. And I figured those cheap ones online, they give you garbage hose you can't use anyway. And there's an AutoZone that's like a Dorman, it's $70, which is still a lot. And you only get 4 feet of hose. And if you buy it by the foot, I think it's like $3. So it's supposed to come, I think, with a predetermined amount of hose for your vehicle. And then I bought an additional 6 feet. So let me just start going ahead and showing everything. I hope it came with more hose than this, because I paid for 6 feet, but it also said that you would get, like when you pick your fittings, that you could get like a braided hose with different types of fittings. So hopefully they gave me a certain amount plus the extra 6 feet. Again, the brand, if I haven't mentioned, is Elite Engineering. I think this is just the order packing slip. And they're mostly made, well, I shouldn't say made, but it seems like their focus is like Corvettes and the Camaros, but then there's the 3.6 Camaros as well. So you can see you can designate what your vehicle is. Now I think, to me, like all catch cans in a way are kind of universal, but supposedly this one's supposed to be better suited for, I guess, this one, when you tell them what it goes to. And you can see I asked for the rubber hose and then the extra 6 feet, so hopefully because I'm thinking at least 4 feet both ways, because I want a little bit of slack until I get in there and know for sure. So we're looking at least hopefully 8 feet. Otherwise I'll have to go get some out of parts store and pay for it. And you can see all the hardware here. Now that doesn't look like they give you any Teflon tape. I've also seen people that say you're supposed to use like a yellow Teflon tape that's supposed to be gas safe. I'll probably just use what I have, since I'm not like racing the thing or anything. I doubt that much oil will be going through it and potentially seeping out to meet it. It's gonna be hard to open without making a mess. So it might be a little redundant, but I can't believe like nobody's shown this catch can from Elite Engineering for the Impala. I think there's a couple videos of the air oil separator on the just the oil cap replacement, but I wanted to show hopefully how it'll work for the Impala. So instead of like the old worm clamps where you tighten them, you have the bulky nut, and then it can kind of cut into your hose. These are the springy kind that you just get a pair of pliers or channel locks. So these will look way cleaner, so I can't complain if they did that. Looks like you get an extra gasket. And then your fittings, I did pay for the stainless steel just to be a little more blending in than brass would, but I'll worry about that later when I know more about what I'm dealing with here. And I guess they're going with this mount. Now with this type, I'm going to have to try and figure out a way to mount it this way unless I add another bracket to it. So that's kind of the point of this video. So I'm hopefully going to be able to come up with something worthwhile to show. Because there have been some other videos on the catch can itself, and it obviously works. And they're quite pricey, so I don't doubt that, but it's just kind of more how I'm going to try and get this to work for a 2012 8th gen Chevy Impala. This has quite a bit of weight to it, so I mean this is a quality product. Everything looks good. I mean, it's got an O-ring on it, it's all lubed up. Got some filtering material in there. Now the only thing you don't get a valve release, but I think it'd almost be more inconvenient to try and get your hand under there, open the valve, and then where you're gonna fit something under it or run a hose on it and have it exit somewhere. So I think it'd just be easier just to unscrew it. So you can see, because of this, I'm gonna have to mount it like this now, in some orientation, and some of them I think they mounted like this, but they came out kind of like, say like that. That could be a little more versatile. And I even read in some of the Impala forums that in the early days they'd give you this and that other mount. So I guess now hopefully they're giving you this because they know it'll work, but there's not too much on it, so I'm kind of going blind here. I'll leave it here. I gotta study it and figure out what I want to do before I set it up. But then I'll come back and see. The first thing I'll do is try and find a mounting spot for this, and then do all the hose running. I'm not sure how well this will come across on camera, but there is a spot here. I had to get a different bracket. I contacted Elite Engineering and said, you know, what came with it just doesn't work. And there's actually a mounting hole for, I guess, just a stability bracket on the radiator fans. And I might have to get some better pictures after the fact. But right back in here, probably see, I mean, you could imagine if you have these cars, you know where I'm talking about. But that bracket is right in here. Now I did use, instead of trying to, you can see there's a little lip clear on the end of that, and it kind of pushes your bracket out. So instead of grinding that down, I just put a washer behind it that was thick enough to take up that gap. And you can see now mine again has this emissions canister for, not exactly sure, I think that's a California thing, but this was, I think the Carfax that started as a rental car, so maybe they were all required to have it. Your other option would be here. If you got the top, there's also a bracket that would kind of come on top and go into the can. And I've seen people mount them here, but one, you'd have to pretty much remove the can every time you want to change the oil filter. And then you're also really close to the exhaust there, so it'd probably heat it up more. But they're also, if it'll focus, there's a hole here which if for some reason you didn't have enough room by this intake box, it could go here, or you could probably just even take this. This is just a little spacer that helps keep this stable. It's nothing crucial. You could probably back this bolt out, and if you had a proper bracket or wanted to make your own. But for me, I did see another install like this, and this is what I went with. And this is where I'm at right now with again that 62L, I believe is what that bracket's called. And I also had to ask for another 90-degree fittings. They sent all that to me for free, but so that's why I'm making this video, just so if you in the future need to order something, you'll know just I would ask them for this bracket and 2 of these fittings instead of the one straight one, because in this orientation, because you're kind of limited since you have to mount it right here. If they had like a round clamp that could rotate the whole can, you'd get way more versatility. But I can't really complain. I mean, since I did find something that works, you just have to get this second 90-degree, and then I aim this one this way. And again, this is kind of in the way. It literally hits right into it, so I'll either have to run the hose above or below. So as long as it doesn't kink it, I mean, this is pretty heavy line, so I think you can bend it without putting any like kinks in it or anything. And that's where I'm at now. I don't want to say anything too definitive until I get everything all measured out and come up with something I think will work, and then I'll come back with another update. So it's been about a week, and I've just been running the added catch can, but I just did the PCV mod of the other one I had, and I'll talk a little bit as how I did that too, just in addition, because if you're going to get the catch can, you're going to be back here, you might as well do all of this. So getting this out is probably the hardest part. I had to use the vice grips is definitely the way to go. I think these are too big to fit back there. It's kind of hard to get a good angle, so when I go out to the hood, I'll explain it, but it's easier to show it here. Some people said to try and pry it. When I got the vice grips finally in a good angle, I just twisted it back and forth, and it started to slide up. Mine wasn't really locked in there, although it did look like there was a little bit of like silicone sealant that was red, kind of right in that crevice, unless it was just a rubber seal that dried and hardened, but to me it looked like RTV or something. But once I just twisted instead of pulling, because there's really not much room to pull, I was able to get it off. Now I did gouge it up a little bit, but I really think it only seals on this barrel, this collar, and then I think the top part really just seals at the top. I don't think there's really a seal here, and then this little collar is just the grip for that locking mechanism on the actual hose fitting. And once I got it off, mine wasn't clogged. I already cleaned it up, but it was just like coated in some carbon, but I didn't have any clogged holes or anything that looked too concerning. But again, this car only has 50,000 miles. And I tried to orientate, looked like mine, this went up and down. So I put the new one in the same way. And to put it back in, once you set it in with your hand, there's really no room to use a hammer. So what I did was use my trim removal tool, set it there, and then hit this, and it actually put it in, seated it perfectly. So unfortunately, it's pretty hard to do much of anything back here. Now you could try removing this, but even if you took this out of the intake, all of this still pretty much sits here, and these are all hose clamps that I don't know how to use that type, so I don't want to mess with this. So you're really working with a limited space, but it's actually easier when you have this catch can set up, because then you just have a hose instead of that short hose that goes from there to there. You can see here, that's the new PCV with the bigger holes. Everything went in fine. Again, that was what was nice about that trim removal tool, is I could just kind of slide it right in here, let it butt up against it, and then there is enough room right here to tap on it. But it's something that's really hard to film, even if a tripod, I mean, to get back in here and have room for the light. And that's the main issue with the Impala, since it's transverse, that it's like this. If this was on a Camaro or something, it'd be a lot easier if that being right up front. But there's really not much else to show with that.
again, I would just recommend you might as well do this all at once. If you're going to do a catch can or you're going to do a PCV mod, just do them at the same time. Now, I didn't do these the same day. I just did the catch can first, ran it for a while. I haven't put too many miles on it. Just wanted to make sure no leaks or no check engine lights or anything, so I would know what to go with. So once I added this, as long as there's no issues, again, I know that both are operating as they're supposed to. And then I have the other hose for the intake side, and I didn't have to zip tie mine down, I put a bit of a bend, not a kink, but that hose, it just kind of holds itself in. I don't see the need to have to zip tie it in place because I don't think it's going to slide out. If you're racing it or something to where you really think that you might need to do that, you can. But and then again, mine has this extra emissions canister on it, but I routed my lines to where I can still get to the transmission, dipstick, and cap, and it's about as good looking as you can get. So it's kind of a dual purpose Elite Engineering catch can, how I mounted mine, and all the routing with the PCV mod for an Impala. There's really nothing too definitive on it, so hopefully this covers enough. It's pretty in-depth, but to help someone out. In case you're wondering, here's a sound clip. I'm not really hearing anything. I mean, I do have a K&N filter that might make a little more noise. This might be giving off a little bit of a hiss, but I mean, there's no leaks. If you think just the vacuum running through that, I think it would have to make some noise, but it might also just be the intake box because they're right next to each other. But I haven't heard anything weird. Since I changed the PCV, I haven't had any weird whistling. I mean, it's also possible it could be the fans or the engine itself. I mean, the intake, it's all right here, but I'm not noticing anything that stands out. It probably wouldn't translate across video anyway, but just to add that, I mean, if you're having some really weird new noise, but to me this is what I'm hearing and I'm not noticing anything out of the ordinary. So for anyone that's unsure, again, I would recommend this catch can if you can afford it, just because it's pretty much the best one you can get, and with this bracket it is pretty close to a proper no modification setup, and it fits nice, it worked out. And for anyone that needs to know how to do it for an engine in this vehicle, hopefully that covered everything I can on it, and I'll let you know if it would cause me any issues. But for the lower amount of mileage I'm putting on it, I probably didn't need to do any of this, but as a precaution and to make this video for anyone else that would want to try it, this should cover all the bases. So thanks for watching. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll see if I can help, and you'll see me in the next one. Have a good one.